Thank you so much for joining me once again. My name is Ngozi Adeleye, founder, CrunchEconometrix, and I'm the facilitator for practical econometrics for researchers, beginners, and advanced level users, known as PEBA. You can reach me via any of the links shown on the screen. This is an introductory video to a new series titled Moderation Modeling. In this introductory video, these are the learning outcomes. We will learn about what moderation modeling is all about. We will also understand that we can use either a panel data or a time series data or a cross-sectional data to engage any moderation model. I will also show you in detail, that is in subsequent videos now, how you can prepare your data set. In this introductory video, I will show you how to specify moderation models, how you can estimate such models, how you can compute the net and conditional effects from such models, interpreting the coefficients, plotting the conditional margin effects. I have also indicated some references at the end of this video. Please note that this is an introductory video. I will provide detailed hands-on application using Stata and EViews, but this will be uploaded to my Teachable platform. Those videos will cover panel data, time series, and using cross-sectional data. I will encourage you to enroll so that you can take advantage and upgrade your analytical skills. All you require is $200, which is a one-off enrollment fee, to enable you to take advantage of all the videos published on the platform. As at the time of making this video, I have already uploaded 73 easy to understand videos on my Teachable platform that is helpful to beginners, intermediate level researchers, or advanced level researchers. So whether you are doing your MSc or postgraduate, or whether you are an undergraduate student, or even a lecturer or researcher, you will find all the videos uploaded to my Teachable platform very useful. Now, what is moderation modeling? Moderation is just another term for interaction. Multiplicative interaction modeling is becoming increasingly popular in the extant literature. Kindly see some indicated studies at the end of the video. Moderation modeling allows the researcher to expand the scope of research. It allows for the formulation of conditioning hypotheses, which adds some novelty to the study. It empirically shows that the relationship between the dependent variable y and an independent variable x is nonlinear, but that relationship is moderated by a second variable m. In other words, the effect of x on y is conditioned on m. This goes beyond establishing only the marginal effects of x on y. Moderation modeling permits measuring the effects of a first predictor, which is x, on a response variable y at different values of the second predictor m. The first predictor is an independent variable, and the second is the moderator. We are interested in the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable, and this effect is different at different values of the moderator. We are not exactly interested in the effect of the moderator on the dependent variable. Before you engage in moderation modeling, it is important for you to provide justifications while you are engaging in moderation analysis. First and foremost, you have to establish the relationship between each predictor variable and the outcome or response variable. That is, in the introduction of your manuscript or your dissertation, you must explain the relationship between x and y and between m and y. Also, in the literature review section, you must theoretically and empirically show the connections between x and y and between m and y. You also need to inform the reader about the relationship between both predictor variables. In other words, in the introduction section of your manuscript or dissertation or thesis, you must explain that relationship existing between X and M. Also, the literature review section must theoretically and empirically show the connections between X and M. So this is a must. You must provide justification while you are engaging in moderation analysis. Now let's look at preparing the data sets. Moderation modeling can be carried out using panel data, time series data, and cross-sectional data. Subsequent videos will show how to prepare your data sets before engaging in moderation analysis. As expected, which I mentioned earlier on, I will provide detailed series using Stata and EViews. So endeavor to enroll for PEBA and take advantage of these easy to understand tutorials. And here you can see the link to PEBA on the screen. Enrollment fee is one-off. It is just $200 and it gives you access to all videos published on the platform. Moderation modeling can be engaged if the dependent, independent, and moderation variables are binary or continuous variables. However, for simplicity, only continuous variables will be engaged throughout these video tutorials using Stata and EViews. But once you fully understand the intricacies, you can explore different variants using binary variables. I will also encourage you to watch my videos on limited dependent variable models and dummy variables. You will find them very helpful. I have these videos on my Teachable platform. Moving on to specifying moderation models. According to Bramble et al. 2006, I have provided a detailed reference to this paper at the end of the video. Researchers include interaction terms whenever there are conditional hypotheses. A conditional hypothesis is simply one in which a relationship between two or more variables depends on the value of one or more other variables. So here is a simple conditional hypothesis. An increase in X is associated with an increase in Y when condition M is met, but not when condition M is absent. So this is a conditional hypothesis. Recall that conditional hypotheses can easily be tested using multiplicative interaction models. So I am not doing additive interaction. This video series is simply on multiplicative interaction models. Now, when we speak about moderation or interaction, we don't usually distinguish between the independent variable and the moderator. On the screen is an example of a moderation equation. Equation 1. Here I have GDP as a function of trade and ICT, and I have a multiplicative interaction term. So in this specification, GDP is a response variable, trade is my first predictor, and ICT is the second predictor. Now, if you look at equation 1 carefully, it can address two different objectives. I can specify equation 1 if I want to evaluate if ICT moderates the effect of trade openness on economic growth. I can also specify equation 1 if I want to assess whether trade openness moderates the effect of ICT on economic growth. But I must sound a note of caution. Make sure that the specified model is plausible and makes sense. So between these two objectives, I can tell you that only the first objectives makes economic sense. Evaluating if ICT moderates the effect of trade openness on growth makes more sense than assessing whether trade openness moderates the effect of ICT on economic growth. This is my personal opinion anyway. Now, I said either predictor could be considered to moderate the effect of the other, which I just explained. though mathematically there is no distinction in their specification, because equation 1 can easily be specified if either of these two objectives is the main focus of my study. Like I said, equation 1 makes more sense if objective 1 is the focus. That is, objective 1 is more plausible than objective 2. Like I said, this is my opinion because the first objective sounds more convincing than the second one. So, ICT moderating the effect of trade openness on growth sounds more convincing, sounds more plausible than me analyzing if trade openness moderates the effects of ICT on growth. Okay, but you don't have to interpret one variable as the independent variable and the other as the moderator. Okay, but it is always good to define from the onset which of these two is your independent and which one is moderating the other. Okay. Also, in specifying moderation models, it is important for you to include all constitutive terms when specifying multiplicative interaction models. When we say constitutive terms, I mean that each element that constitutes the interaction term must be included in the model. If you remember equation 1, trade and ICT are the constitutive terms. So throughout this video series, the focus, like I said, is on multiplicative interaction models that include interaction terms, that is trade multiplied by ICT. Still on specification, it is important to note that multiplicative interaction models can take a variety of forms, one of which may be quadratic terms. Remember, quadratic terms or cubic terms are actually moderation models or interaction models. You are simply multiplying that variable by itself. In this case, x times x, x squared. So this is a quadratic term. It can also include higher order interaction terms. That is, I'm multiplying x by m and by another variable. So no matter what form the interaction term takes, you must include all the constitutive terms in the equation. In the first quadratic example, x should be included as the interaction term if I'm going to include x squared in my model, as you can see in equation 2. So I have y, I have alpha naught, I have alpha 1x, I have alpha 2m, and I have alpha 3 x times x. This is a quadratic specification. I'm talking about equation 2 now. Likewise, x, mk, xm, xk, and nk are the constitutive terms if I'm including x, mk as the interaction term, as you can see in equation 3. So make sure that you include all constitutive terms when you are specifying an interaction or a moderation model. As mentioned earlier on, I'm going to provide detailed model estimations using Stata and EViews. And this analysis will be done on the panel data, time series data, and cross-sectional data. I will encourage you again to enroll for PEBA so that you can take advantage of these easy-to-understand tutorials. Again, I have provided the link to my Teachable platform. Enrollment fee is cheap. It is also one-off, meaning you're only going to pay it once and for all. And that gives you access to all the videos published on the platform. In addition to that, all enrollees will have access to my dataset and Stata do files and supporting literature, meaning you don't have to pay for my dataset or pay for my do file once you enroll for PEBA. Enrollment fee is just $200. This is cheap, and I know you wouldn't want to miss this. Interpreting the coefficients. Equation 1 is specified to evaluate if ICT moderates the effect of trade openness on economic growth. Remember I said that sounds more plausible to me, and that is the approach I'm going to take. Now, from equation 1, you can see Trade and ICT are the constitutive terms, and this is their interaction term. And from equation 1, to obtain the conditional effect of trade on GDP, all you have to do is to take the first derivative of equation 1 with respect to trade and set it to 0. And that takes us to equation 4. As suggested by Cohen and Cohen, 1983, supported by Aiken and West, 1999, I have also provided these detailed references at the end of the video. It will help you if you want to cite them. The moderator variable, which is ICT in this case, can be evaluated using 3 values. You can evaluate equation 4 at the mean, minimum, or maximum values of ICT. The interpretation of multiplicative interaction models differs in an important way from linear additive regression models. This is because the coefficients of the constitutive term trade must not be interpreted as an unconditional marginal effect, since it indicates only the effects of a 1-unit change in trade on GDP when ICT is 0, talking about alpha 1. The interaction model asserts that the effect of a change in trade on GDP depends on the value of the conditioning variable ICT. Now let's look at equation 4 closely. Only 2 coefficients are relevant here, alpha 1 and alpha 3. Alpha 1 and alpha 3 must be statistically significant for you to compute the net or conditional effects. Alpha 1 should not be interpreted as the marginal or unconditional effect of trade on GDP. Alpha 1 is the effect of trade on GDP when ICT is 0. Alpha 3 weighs the interaction or moderation effects. The addition of alpha 1 and alpha 3 produces the net or conditional effects of trade on GDP when ICT is not 0. So these are the things you must know when you are interpreting your coefficients. In detail, if our a priori is that alpha 1 and alpha 3 is positive, that is, trade increases growth and the interaction of ICT and trade increases growth, if that is our a priori, and we also assume or believe that ICT has positive values, therefore, equation 4 allows us to test different forms of the trade growth nexus. We can get about 8 results from here. 8 results. Carefully, if both coefficients are positive, you can see the outcome. ICT enhances the impact of growth. You can see when they have different signs, you also have a different interpretation. So I will encourage you to spend a bit of time on this page or on this slide to see the different outcomes that you can obtain from equation 4. Okay? Take a look at each of them, because when you run your analysis, you are likely to have any of the signs. It is not all the time that you are going to have the exact a priori that you have set. Your results may follow any of this, and you can modify your interpretation given what I've shown you on the screen. So like I said, spend a bit of a time on this slide to see the various forms of trade growth nexus that may come out after you have done your analysis. In computing the net and conditional effects, alpha 3 gauges the interaction or moderation effect. It is also crucial that alpha 3 is statistically significant, because that is relevant in the computation of the conditional effects of trade on GDP. This is because you have to factor it in during the calculation. But if alpha 3 is statistically not significant, it simply means it is statistically not different from 0. So what does that mean? It implies that the conditional effect of trade on GDP will be equal to the marginal effects of trade on GDP. By the time we take detailed analysis, you will understand this when we get to the results interpretation. But what if alpha 1 or alpha 3 equals 0? That is, what if either of the coefficients are not significant? Then the conditional effect is inconclusive. I mentioned this before that according to Cohen and supported by Aiken and West, the moderator variable can be evaluated at 3 values: mean, minimum, or maximum. This video series will also cover conditional margin plots. This is because moderation effects are difficult to interpret without a graph. The margin plot helps us to see the effects of the independent variable at different values of the moderator. The conditional margin plot also informs how the outcome variable, in this case GDP, responds to changes in the explanatory variable, in this case trade, when we have changes in the moderator, which is ICT. For continuous variables, the conditional margin plot measures the change in the dependent variable along the distribution of the moderator. However, the conditional margin plot will be done in Stata only. This is because I don't have the code for EViews. But if you have the code for EViews, you can provide them for me in the comment section, and I will definitely produce margin plots from EViews. So the conditional margin plots in this video series will be done using Stata only. I have provided some references for you to support your moderation analysis. I have Bramble, which I used extensively in this video, Cohen and Cohen, Aiken and West, and so many of my papers. I have so many of my papers where I engaged moderation analysis. These are very interesting papers, easy to understand, with detailed interpretation. I also have Baroa et al. I have Ofori et al. These are very good papers. I have Aduse and Adeleye. I have Asongu et al. Interesting papers, and also have Adeleye et al. These are very interesting papers that you can read and download. Some of them are free to download on my website, so connect with my website, go straight to publication, and download my papers on moderation analysis. Thank you so much for watching. I have just covered Introduction to Moderation Modeling. I will encourage you to enroll for PEBA. Take advantage of these easy to understand tutorials, and here is the link for you to register. Enrollment fee, like I said, is cheap. It is one-off. It is just $200. Gives you access to all the videos published on the platform. I'd love to hear from you. Please remember to leave your feedback in the comment section. And please remember to refer your friends, colleagues, and institutions to enroll into the CrunchEconometrix paper series.